Greetings, everyone, and welcome. Tonight, I want to come to you with an update specifically talking about this critical time in the war in Ukraine. I'm seeing on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and other sources, a video transcript of President Vladimir Zelenskyy talking about a break in confidentiality, specifically speaking with the White House. I see a lot of this information coming forward 1 week before the election, and people on both sides of the American election and internationally are looking at this and running with it in very unique ways. But tonight, I want to bring some settling news to you. Guys, this has been happening for months and months and months and months. This can go back to Zelenskyy even talking about the Kursk operation. And one of the reasons it was so successful is that nobody knew about it. They were able to keep the secrecy for the Kursk operation. Tonight, I can confirm to you that confidentiality in regard to the war in Ukraine is damaged. But I want to encourage you tonight by telling you that this is not anything new. This has been happening. I remind all of you that there are Russian spies, there are Russian feelers and tentacles spread throughout the entire world. Of course, there are people in government, whether in the United States or throughout Europe or anywhere else in the world, that have connections to the Russian war machine. That is a fact. But in specific regard to this is not anything new. This news is not surprising. President Zelenskyy giving a clear update on what is happening in the war in Ukraine, and if victory and his victory plan for Ukraine is to be achieved, Western nations must stand together. NATO must become stronger. Western weapons have to be used to strike inside of Russia. But I will tell you, in regard to the videos that are floating around with President Zelenskyy talking about the break in confidentiality, this one is a big one. This one is a big one, but this is not new. You know, I have said since the beginning of the war that Ukraine is fighting a multi-front war, not only against Russia, propaganda, corruption, but they are also fighting now and have been on a front against confidentiality. And guys, this is not easy to keep things secret as far as war plans and negotiations and red lines and how the West can help. You know, you may or may not have any idea actually what I'm talking about right now. So let me play the video. Zelenskyy clearly updates victory plan and speaks directly about confidentiality. Here you go.
Regarding the full-scale war, many world leaders, strong economies, and powerful nations have taken preventive measures. When I asked them, as part of the victory plan, to provide a package of long-range weapons, I assured them we'd only use them if Russia doesn't stop the war or continues to escalate. I explained this as a preventive measure, but they called it escalation. When many countries started to support the victory plan, you can see what's happening in the media now. They're saying that Ukraine wants or wanted many missiles like Tomahawks and so on, but this was supposed to be confidential information between Ukraine and the White House. How should we interpret these messages? It seems that between partners, there are no truly confidential exchanges anymore.
Now, one of the things I'll draw your attention to is President Zelenskyy continues to talk about the partner relationship. Additionally, the translation there is accurate. He's calling out the White House specifically. Was there a break in confidentiality? Absolutely, 100%. But I'm here to tell you this is not new. This has been happening. Unfortunately, this is a big one in regard to the victory plan. Ukraine, more than ever, needs a Western solidarity, a concrete will to stand against the Russian war machine. Of course, you can listen and analyze to what Zelenskyy is talking about. You know, we won't use these weapons. He specifically talks about Tomahawks. We will not use these long-range weapons unless Russia continues the war. I'm telling you right now, that's a sticking point because it's hard without strong leadership. whether it's in the United States or throughout Europe or any other parts of the world, to determine those lines. What is an escalation? What is Russia continuing? For you and I, if you're here and you've made it this far in the video, you understand it. Russia is continuing their aggression, and we must allow Western weapons to be used to strike targets, but confidentiality of plans must happen. But please stay balanced with this information, because the truth is there have been breaks in confidentiality even before the full-scale invasion happened in February of 2022. There have been breaks in confidentiality of planning beginning in 08, 12, 14, 16, all the different key years of events that have happened during and leading up to this full-scale invasion and war in Ukraine. Now, pushing into 3 years, we see that we are very, very close to full-scale global war. And many transitions are happening throughout the United States, throughout Europe, and throughout the rest of the world. It will be interesting to see. Of course, we have no genie in a bottle. We have no crystal ball. But we do know in a week from now, we will be watching the presidential election to see what happens. But I'm not putting the entire onus on presidents or administrations here at all. Zelenskyy does call out the White House. But I'm here to tell you there is much more at play than just the White House. This propaganda machine from Russia, these bots that have been placed everywhere throughout the globe, gathering information and manipulating narratives, has been happening for years and years and years. As I close out this brief update tonight, I can tell you additionally, these narratives are also happening in Georgia, Moldova, and Zelenskyy today, and I will show you the quote in just a minute, talking about Georgia falling to the Russian machine. And although Moldova looks to be 50-50 split and everything's looking okay as it's leaning toward EU, he says, listen, don't listen to it. The same thing will happen in Moldova. Take a look at the quote tonight. This is an analysis of the former CIS, this information coming from Vladimir Zelenskyy. He says, it must be admitted that Russia has won in Georgia. They took part of the country, then changed the internal policies and the government. And now there is a pro-Russian government. The decision of Georgia is friendship with the Russian Federation, not the European Union. Quoting Vladimir Zelenskyy. Additionally, he said, Moldova will go the same direction. You will see the Russian Federation is following the same pathways now in Moldova, step by step. And I'm telling you, that is how Russian, especially that KGB, USSR, Soviet mentality that dates back decades and decades and decades, that's how they operate. Slow and step by step. They will even allow narratives, as we are now seeing in Moldova, to look on the surface, oh, Moldova's going EU. Everything's going to be okay. Same things we said about Georgia after the Georgian-Russian, we can call it war, of 2008. But we see where we're at in 2024. He says, you will see the same in Moldova. I want to remind you guys, here is a map of the former CIS. You see Russia there in the large green nation, and we know where Russia is, but additional other nations who are full members and founders were nations like Belarus. You see the partial map of Ukraine in the red. The nation of Ukraine was not only a former member of the CIS, but they were a founding nation. CIS standing for Commonwealth of Independent States. To the left of Ukraine there in the yellow, you see the Transnistria. It's really weird here, guys. And then the green is associate member and founder, which was Moldova, a nation we're talking about. And I am correlating these stories, and I will bring it back in a synopsis in just a moment. Really interesting here on the CIS, though. The regions on the eastern side of Ukraine, you see in the map there, Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, Kherson, and Crimea are now painted in yellow as disputed territories of the CIS. There has been an adjustment in the mapping. Are you watching? Are you paying attention? This is how it unfolds step by step by step. You see there in the black, though, the bulldog nations up, the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, never and refusing to join the CIS because they were small enough, but also well aware of the Soviet Union, knowing that is the wrong pathway for us. I'm glad and thankful for those bulldog nations, but that is why they're standing so strong, those Baltic states, against what is happening in Ukraine, in Georgia, in Moldova, because they know what is coming toward those small nations. It would not be Poland that Russia would go after, as so many people have thought or suggested. It will be Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and they are fighting with all of their efforts to stand against that every day by supporting Ukraine. So interesting here, when you look at what Zelenskyy said, and I'll back up to that, he updates the victory plan, and I guess complain is a fair word. I try to choose my words wisely. He complains about the break in confidentiality in regard to plans for victory, and that this cannot happen. Thankfully, he still calls on the United States and European nations as partners, and that we stand and we fight for victory, as he well should, to be quite honest. But I'm here tonight to tell you it is not as simple as there's just some guy in the White House spreading information. It is much more complex than that. And as I compare and bring a bigger scale picture, it's what we're seeing in Georgia, and we will see in Moldova. Russia is at work in nations around the world to not only wage war against Ukraine, but wage war against the West. And this is how they do it, step by step by step, breaking confidentiality on that national and international level, breaking trust on that national and international level, breaking any bonds of solidarity on that national international level. And we must be smart enough. We're here supporting and sharing the truth, but we must be smart enough to recognize that there is much more at play here. And that is why we must continue to stand and support Ukraine until victory. Guys, thank you for being here for this update. I appreciate you, if you haven't, to subscribe, turn the notification bell on. Videos drop at any time like this one. Lives are a big part of what we do to be interactive. Thank you for leaving a comment. Thank you for sharing this. Thank you for all the work that happens behind the scenes as we stand together to support Ukraine. Thank you, guys, and good night.